Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Natural Fertility with Dr. Jane. Of course, I am Dr. Jane. I'm a naturopathic doctor and natural fertility expert, and I help couples who have been struggling with infertility for more than a year get to the root cause and heal so they can conceive naturally. Now, the podcast is really designed to help answer some of the most common questions that I get, to bring knowledge so you guys can advocate for yourself, and more importantly, you can stop wasting time figuring out what's wrong. I find most of my couples come to me, they want to achieve a healthy pregnancy and they haven't been able to do that because they don't have any answers. And so they can't find anything that's working. And then the professional support is really unreliable or inconsistent. And so I find a lot of my patients, when they come to me, they have labs that show things that are already wrong, but the doctor never explained to them. So they were told, oh, this is normal, nothing, it's just unexplained infertility. And so you're still searching for answers, you're kind of poking in the dark, you're trying to do random stuff. And in reality, the answers are right there in front of you. So I don't want you to make sure you overlook anything and that, of course, you're not wasting time. Today, I want to talk to you about low progesterone. This is a very common question that I get. I wouldn't even say it's a question, it's more of a frustration. Hey doc, my progesterone is low. I started taking progesterone, but I'm still miscarrying or I still can't get pregnant. So I'm going to break down to you why it's important to understand the root cause of low progesterone and some of the possible root causes of low progesterone and how to actually approach it. Because if you've been told you need to take more B6 or vitamin C or Vitex, Chaste Tree, or Wild Yam to help boost your progesterone, and even though there's a lot of research behind help those supplements and herbs helping increase progesterone levels, they are not treating the root cause. And so many of you are going to be frustrated because it's not treating the root cause. So you might notice a little bit of a bump in your progesterone, but it's not enough to have a healthy pregnancy, essentially. And that's why we're all here. We want to figure it out. We want to know why our body's not doing what it's supposed to be doing so we can support it and then help it have a happy and healthy pregnancy. The word progesterone literally means progestation. It's a vital hormone for your fertility. And I think what most people overlook is that testing your progesterone 7 days post-ovulation is critical to figure out not just what your progesterone levels are doing, but it also helps us understand the quality of the egg. So when the egg matures, the follicle matures and it ovulates, something that's left over is called corpus luteum. That corpus luteum is the thing that's going to go on to produce progesterone. Now, if in the second half of the cycle, it's low, then we know that that egg probably didn't hit its full maturation. So it's a really good way to check in on egg quality. And now a lot of women get put on progesterone as soon as they miscarry or as soon as they have any kind of signs or symptoms of low progesterone without actually testing low progesterone. And I think that's a huge disservice to you as a patient to just be put on medication, or from a functional medical perspective to be put on supplements and not have any explanation as to why you're being put on it, or if that's actually a thing that you need. So the first thing, you guys, is you actually just need to test your progesterone. Don't test it on day 3 of your cycle. Don't test it around ovulation. It only rises in the second half of the cycle after ovulation. So test progesterone day 21, anywhere day 21 to sometimes day 30, right? So it's really important to know when you're ovulating. Some women are going to ovulate much later than others. You do not have to ovulate on day 14. So make sure you're aware of that ovulation. And I have lots of podcasts on that, so I'm not going to go into that, but you want to get it tested. The other way to look at kind of the health of your progesterone is your temperature. So I wear an Oura ring now. It's not a body basal temperature thermometer that would be a little bit more accurate, but in my Oura ring data, I could see that the second half of the cycle, my temperature goes up. It's generally on a positive side. And so it's negative in the first half, positive in the second half. And the more kind of positive it is, now sometimes, of course, we get a flu or we're catching a cold or something, and that can increase our temperature. Or maybe you had a really hard workout and there's a little bit more inflammation in the body. But overall, the pattern should be that it's low in the first half of the cycle and then high in the second half of the cycle. That's going to give us some ideas about your progesterone levels. And then, of course, your symptoms. If in the second half of the cycle you have extreme moodiness, depression, irritability, maybe you have some acne breakouts, maybe you have some breast tenderness, or you just feel really low energy. And then once the period comes, it could be really painful, really crampy. Those are all signs as well of low progesterone. Now, remember that no hormone works alone. So you can't just have low progesterone and everything else is perfect. Usually there's other imbalances, whether it's issue with testosterone, issue with estrogen dominance. Now, estrogen dominance comes because the progesterone is low, and so the body's trying to balance things out. So you never want to look at just one hormone and say, oh, this is what's going on for me, and so I'm going to just treat this one thing. You have to look at the whole picture. You have to assess all of your hormones. But not only that, the point that I'm getting to is hormones are not root cause. So when progesterone is low, we have to ask the question why, instead of just jumping to solutions, whether they're medical conventional solutions, aka taking progesterone, or the alternative solutions, taking herbs and supplements that help to boost progesterone. Before we start boosting progesterone, we need to understand why it's low. So if you don't have the answer as to why that is, imagine you have a leak in the house and you're just randomly placing buckets, hoping that you're going to catch that leak. Instead, you want to do an assessment and see where the leak is. So first of all, you can catch the bucket to catch the leak, but you're going to have to fix the leak in the first place, because that bucket is going to overflow eventually. And that's the same with the body. Yes, we can place the bucket to prevent the leak from getting anywhere else, but if we don't fix the roof or the ceiling, wherever that leak is coming from, you're constantly going to have to replace the bucket. And it's going to feel very frustrating for you because it feels like you're just patching up your symptoms. So let's talk about why progesterone might be low. If you look at the production of progesterone and where it's coming from. So, of course, the trigger from ovulation is happening from the brain, but the actual production of progesterone is happening in the ovaries. So the health of the ovary is going to be really important. Like, how do we determine if our ovaries are healthy? I kind of say that there's two things that we need to our healing. We need blood flow, and then we need nutrients in that blood. So you need to bring blood flow to the area that you want to heal. Think about when you snap your ankle or you twist your ankle, what happens? A lot of blood flow goes there. There's a lot of heat, redness, and a lot of white blood cells, red blood cells going in order to repair the damage. But that process happens in our entire body, just not at that same extent, if you will, when you do something as drastic as twist or break your ankle. And so when it comes to ovaries, I do a lot of understanding, hey, is there good blood flow to the area? And then what's going on in the actual blood? Do we have the nutrients that we need in the blood to heal what is going on? So let me break that down for you even further. For example, cholesterol. So progesterone, the backbone of progesterone, the precursor is pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is the precursor to that is cholesterol. So cholesterol is something that has gotten a bad rap, but it's actually critical for hormone health. And this is true for both females and males. And of course, we're just talking about progesterone for females in this instance. I don't want you to think that progesterone is important for males. Please don't think that. It's more for hormone health. But so cholesterol is the backbone of our sex hormones. And what do we need? Cholesterol is something that we obviously need to consume, so high quality fats, but we also need to be able to absorb it. And so we need to have good liver function and gallbladder function in order to be able to absorb the fats. And then you have to look at nutrients. What nutrients do we need to make good progesterone? So we talked about cholesterol, so healthy fats, proteins is going to be in there. And then you're going to have a bunch of micronutrients. So vitamin C, B6, zinc, selenium, and other vitamins and minerals that will really help with the production of progesterone. Now, the caveat here, if you will, is, are you absorbing those nutrients? So we have to look at what's going on with the gut. Usually I break it down with, hey, you're either not getting enough of these nutrients, you're not absorbing it, or they're going somewhere else. And the going somewhere else So first, let's go the gut before I jump. So if you're not consuming it, this is that high quality diet that everybody's talking about now, right? Get your antioxidants in, get enough protein, make sure you're getting enough sleep, all that jazz to help actually get that nutrients into your body and absorb it. Then we go down into absorption. Absorption is actually going to look at the integrity of the gut. What is the mucosal lining of the gut doing? The prebiotics, the probiotics, the actual like inflammation, the bacteria, the microbiome, is it happy? Or are there a lot of pathogenic bacteria or parasites or viruses? Are there infections, candida, yeast that are hanging around? And not only are they preventing you from being able to absorb nutrients to their full capacity, but it brings me to that third point is, are the nutrients that you're eating being used up for something else? So the body has a list of priorities, and reproduction, unfortunately, is not the top of the list. Things like immune system, inflammation, blood sugar dysregulation, infections are all going to take priority over reproduction. So if you have this like low grade chronic infections or parasites or mold or yeast, all of the nutrients are going towards dealing with that. And then if you add stress to it, meaning you have some more mental and emotional stress in your life, and life is just fast paced, there's a lot going on, there's a lot on your plate. This is where we can get into something called the cortisol steal. So the body is using the nutrients to make cortisol instead of progesterone. Okay. So do you see like how, if I'm just giving you stuff to treat progesterone without understanding the root cause, why it doesn't really help for most people? Like I've seen people come to me where they've had issues with progesterone forever, and then we do some parasite cleansing and their progesterone literally jumps up double and triple the amount within a couple of months. Within a couple of months, not years, months. And that is because we removed the cause. We removed the thing that was causing all of this nutrient depletion. And so now the body she was taking in really good nutrients. She got rid of a bunch of environmental toxins. And so there was no reason for her not to have good progesterone levels. So she thought, until we did more testing. And like I said, more cleansing, that was really powerful. So understanding the root cause is going to be important. And then the last thing that I'll talk to you guys about is where the progesterone is made, and that is the mitochondria. So the mitochondria actually helps us make all of our sex hormones, our estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. It also helps us with our cortisol production, so AKA stress hormones, and it helps with inflammation, and it helps us to make energy. So if you have a lot of brain fog, you have low energy, you have low hormones, you can't lose weight, those are all mitochondrial dysfunction issues. And our ovaries are literally filled with mitochondria, like filled, hundreds of thousands of mitochondria per follicle. And it's a critical development for both sperm and egg, because reproduction is a high energy output. So we need a lot of these beautiful high functioning mitochondria. The problem is, and again, I have a podcast on this, breaking down the mitochondria. The mitochondria has two states. It's either in battleship mode or in powerhouse mode. So if it's in powerhouse mode, it's making you all the hormones, it's making energy, it's doing all the good things that we want it to do. It actually even helps our body rehydrate, right? Helps with the production of water, internal production versus just like what you're taking in. And then when it's not in powerhouse mode, it's in battleship mode, meaning it's fighting infections, heavy metals, environmental toxins, industrial environmental toxins, parasites, viruses. It's like a teeter-totter. If it's in battleship, it can be in powerhouse. And the more cells that you have in battleship, the less cells you have in powerhouse. And that means less and less cells are able to make the energy, the hormones, and everything else that we need to have a good reproductive system, if you will, and good endocrine function. So you have to look at the mitochondria function because it's in the ovaries, and that's going to really dictate your ovulation. And therefore, it's going to dictate your progesterone levels in the second half of the cycle. So before you do anything, you guys, here's what I really want to reach to you with this podcast is, number one, test your progesterone and make sure that it is the actual issue. And if you're in the US, your levels should be above 10 minimum, but ideally between 15 to 25. That's a sign of a good quality egg and strong ovulation. If you're in Canada, those numbers, I believe, are 25 to 45. So it needs to be at least above 20. And then ideally it's going into the 30s and 40s. And then when you're pregnant, it's going to be even higher, right? So test your progesterone levels. And if you don't have access to being able to test it, get a body basal temperature or get an Oura ring and start looking at your temperature in the second half of the cycle. Is it elevated in the second half of the cycle, and for how many days? If it's only elevated for 2 or 3 days or under 10, that's a sign of low luteal phase, low progesterone. And it needs to be elevated for a minimum of 10 days, but ideally 14. So you should see that second half of the cycle, a temperature rise. And of course, look at your symptoms. I hate it when we have normalized so many symptoms, not just around female health, but in general. It's normal to carry an extra 20 or 30 pounds. It's normal to have PMS. It's normal to have painful periods. It's normal to have acne. It's normal to be bloated. And it's just like none of those things are normal. If you look at somebody, and I take a lot of pride in my health, and because I believe that I cannot tell people what to do when it comes to their health if I don't have my stuff figured out. Now, I don't have everything figured out. There's always an evolution to healing, but there's got to be a standard that we set for ourselves. And so if I'm starting to gain weight, I'm looking at that and thinking, have I changed something in my diet? Is my sleep off? What's going on with my stress hormones? And I want you to start thinking about these things too, because if you're listening to this podcast and you've been struggling with infertility for years, you might feel really gypped and angry and frustrated when you realize that your doctor never even tested you before recommending IVFs and IUI. And that was the only solution that was given to you. You might be frustrated with your naturopathic doctor or your functional doctor who also didn't test you, or just gave you Vitex, vitamin C, and B6 and stopped their research from there as soon as they found out you had low progesterone and didn't dig deeper. And if you're just starting out, then you want to learn this information so you can be proactive. I really want to make sure you guys do not waste time and you do not have any regrets in this journey. I think infertility can be such a cruel space. And it's like when they say the trenches of infertility, it really does feel like you're in the trenches because there's so many different things coming at you and all you want to do is have a baby. And so as a mother and as someone, who experienced a miscarriage, and I had a family member who experienced infertility, I hear you and I see you, and I just don't want you to give up and think that you've done everything, because I promise you that you haven't. And so I hope you guys really enjoyed this podcast. If you have more questions for me, please send it to my Instagram at Dr. Jane Levesque and pass this on, share this with somebody who you think might find it helpful. I love it when the moms and the friends reach out to me and say, hey, I'm not struggling with infertility, but my friend is, and I'm wondering if you have some resources that I could maybe share with her. So God bless you guys. I think it's incredible that you're doing that. Thank you for sharing all your content. Thank you for sharing all my content. I super appreciate it, for the follows, for the likes, and of course for tuning in. That's it for this episode, and I'll see you next time.